It was terrifying, I tell you. I've seen it on TV and I never ever thought it would happen to me.
Tonight, Wollongong isolated by floodwater which has taken a life, destroyed homes and caused millions of dollars damage.
News with Mary Franks.
Good evening. Some of the worst flash flooding in the region's history has prompted a state of emergency in the Illawarra. The deluge has claimed at least one life.
The 1 in 300-year deluge hit with a vengeance. At Dapto, water police mobilised to rescue an isolated family. On the roads, major access routes, including Mount Ousley, became awash with waterfalls. A police officer crushed between two vehicles at an accident scene, the first of the night's casualties. Traffic was a nightmare. Motorists endured 4 to 5 hour delays with Ousley, Bulli, Macquarie and Jamberoo passes all closed. Landslips trapped others on Lawrence Hargrave Drive. At Bulli, the Illawarra's isolation was completed when the rail line collapsed, tons of rock, mud and debris pulling up metres from a home. At Waterfall, chaos reigned as trains ground to a halt. Thousands were left stranded, fuses were short.
When I paid a ticket, they said they'd get me home. Why aren't they getting me home?
Hungry, tired, want a cold beer and a warm bed.
Emergency accommodation and food was a priority.
There'll be 200 people fed down there, so if you make your way on the bus as quickly as possible, get out of this weather.
Down the escarpment, torrential rain turned suburban streets into raging rivers. Suddenly, lives were at risk.
Someone put their hand up over the roof and grabbed the kids, and we got the kids up on the roof. They were able to grab onto the security door and just hold onto that. At
Bellambi, rising waters forced a rooftop rescue.
Come on, darling, it's all right.
Metres away, motorists flaunted disaster trying to cross flooded roadways. It had fatal results for one. A 71-year-old man was washed to his death in a flooded creek. At Fig Tree, a wall of water inundated homes in a matter of seconds.
Had to knock down part of the back fence to get the family out. My 3 children, my wife's pregnant with our 4th. But we got them to safety.
Crisis centres catered for the refugees of suburban flooding.
As we actually opened the door, a whole gush of water just came straight through the house.
Yeah, it was terrifying, I tell you. I've seen it on TV and I never ever thought it would happen to me.
The incredible force of the torrent is very evident around this area. And with the flash flooding starting to recede, this, another downpour, is exactly what emergency crews don't want. Damage reports flooded in. Shops at Westfield Fig Tree went under, so did a Corrimal shopping mall. Owners attempted the impossible.
4 foot and stocks all over the place. Mud.
The Cabbage Tree Hotel took the brunt of flooding, losing fridges and stock down a raging creek. Low-life looters emerged.
We've caught them in the bubble shop already, when just within minutes they're there.
And with the crisis passing, flood victims took priority.
Accommodation for these persons is our primary purpose at this stage.
And with the initial emergency phase now over, scenes like these were repeated right throughout the region. The morning light revealing the true carnage caused by last night's deluge.
Wollongong awoke to isolation this morning and a damage bill running into millions of dollars.
As daylight came, so too did realisation of the full extent of the damage. Residents awoke to flooded streets, abandoned cars and mud, and the realisation that floods exact a dreadful toll. A 71-year-old man died at Bellambi when his car was caught in rising waters.
Well, originally when I first showed up, it was on my chest and the water was covered the car. I didn't see the car when I first showed up. It was only when the water started to subside, when the rain let up, that we could see the roof of the car. It looked like a bag was on the front seat and I tapped on the window and I could see the body in the front seat of the car. It was well and truly under for at least 20 minutes.
As the rain continued to fall, people struggled to come to grips with the damage to homes and property and the speed with which it all happened.
When that thunderstorm come up, it must have come from nowhere, and it just come up over nowhere. I just can't believe it. And then when we come down here, we're up to here.
That experience was mirrored across the city.
But it came up that quick, we lost everything. Lost the cars, everything just went under. The neighbours were helping me, and then all of a sudden we had to go and help the neighbours. They lost everything too.
The water was over my waist, and it was right through the house, and the furniture was just all floating. And I just had to set the dogs up onto floating chairs to save them.
Despite assurances that this was a once-in-300 years event, some victims are critical of authorities, claiming more could have been done to prevent some of the damage.
5 foot here, it's impossible. Something else must have attributed upstream, maybe at the pit, because there you can see the coal washers there. Something's come down from there. I don't know what it is. It was a bloody nightmare here last night, I'll tell you.
And there's flack for the Rail Access Corporation with another collapse at Wombara.
There was a huge landslide in 1991 and 3 since 1991. Each time it seems the railway, State Rail has just filled the hole.
The extremely short period in which a rainy night turned into a watery hell caught almost everyone in the Illawarra by surprise.
Major buildings and institutions were hit hard by the liquid slaughter. An estimated 30 tonnes of coal came cascading down mountain from Bellambi Colliery.
It was just a wave of coal and water coming down from the mountain over there, and it just got to the intersection, hit the service station, just splashed everywhere, and there was just cars trying to get through at the intersection, and they were just getting washed down Bellambi Lane. It was just incredible scenes, people everywhere panicking, just the coal was just floating down the road, going behind the garage, just incredible, never seen nothing like it.
Heavy machinery was brought down from the colliery at first light to begin the arduous clean-up. The 1 kilometre trail of destruction, including slabs of pavement and expensive equipment inside businesses caught in its black path. Also among the carnage, Wollongong University, drenched computers piled high on an electronic scrap heap. Many of the lecture rooms succumbed to the deluge, together with the Office of Research and Library.
The major losses are in floor coverings, especially carpets, furniture. There are a lot of damage to electrical goods, computers in particular, and quite substantive losses in some of the offices. So initially we put the figure at least 2 million.
Students were sent home today and no classes will be held until Saturday. At Westfield Fig Tree, more mopping up. All shops on the ground floor reported some sort of water damage. The cost in lost stock to businesses affected across the Illawarra will reach into the tens of millions. Cabbage Tree Creek was one of many waterways to burst its banks. This house also one of many to have its foundations swept from beneath it. As always in adversity comes great human compassion and cooperation. Hundreds of volunteers have converged on the disaster area, but despite the legions of helpers, the clean-up is still expected to take weeks, if not months. Stories abounded of solidarity, about 50 pitching in to help those in need in Lachlan Street, Thirroul.
Just the local communities come out to help the people that have been affected by the flood, and I think it's absolutely fantastic.
We're very lucky, all the neighbourhoods just come and bandied around, and they're really doing a great job. We couldn't have survived the night without them, and today they're just being absolutely wonderful.
Boulders and other debris dumped in backyards after a nearby creek changed course entirely at the peak of the flooding. Emergency workers are still astounded at the low mortality rate from the disaster. Only 1 person has been reported dead. They can count themselves amongst the lucky hundreds who cheated death during the overnight rampage.
Premier Bob Carr today toured some of the worst affected areas. He immediately declared the Illawarra a natural disaster area, promising millions of dollars in assistance.
300 millimetres of rain in a 3-hour period. Emergency services throughout the Illawarra are calling it a 1-in-300-year event.
It was like a machine gun going off in terms of critical areas.
Racing to the Disaster Control Headquarters in Wollongong this morning, the Premier and Emergency Services Minister Bob Debus, along with 300 emergency personnel, were briefed on the devastating downpour and the subsequent chaos across the city.
It is absolutely extraordinary that we have had such a small loss of life.
Touring one of the most waterlogged streets in Fairy Meadow, the Premier found in every home, on every face, a tale of terror.
The water was up to here, and we couldn't do anything about it.
How quickly did it hit you?
5 minutes. 5 minutes from ground level up to here. We just got the dogs upstairs.
Certainly not going unnoticed, though, stories of individual heroism and the work of more than 40 fire brigade crews and hundreds of SES volunteers.
30 units, 25 of them from outside the city, and I praise those volunteers. No words of mine are adequate to the task. of extolling what they've done.
But the New South Wales Fire Brigade actually rescued 3 children from a house who were swimming inside the house.
Out of the tragedy and the loss that people have sustained here, there's a very reassuring message, and that is that a disaster plan emerged and was in place in the shortest possible time. I find that extremely impressive.
Just metres from the Premier's tour, police divers were sent into Cabbage Tree Creek to check 3 submerged vehicles after fears 4 people were missing from a nearby hotel. To the relief of the many onlookers, no one was found. Also bringing comfort to those faced with financial ruin and days of mopping up, a promise of compensation and assistance.
We declare it a natural disaster area. That means that loans, low-interest loans of up to $80,000 are available to business.
Wollongong's Lord Mayor has also launched his own relief appeal.
Also that the broader community can make cash donations so that we can help people get back on their feet.
And faced with heavy criticism regarding a lack of council maintenance of watercourses and rail lines,
we have people in the field today who are doing some survey work on flood levels so that we can ensure that we have that information as we work through the design process in the future.
Meantime, emergency hotlines have been set up for anyone requiring urgent information. Rachel Lee Walden, Win News.
In the news ahead, a jobs boost for the far south coast, and Eden gets a last chance to lure a Navy